All right. So OK Coders from the beach begins now. Beach Coders. So we're going to go through the exercise from Saturday. All right, which was our library JS. Okay. So this is our terminal-based program, and we need to start filling out some of these functions. So the first thing we need to be able to do is create a book. So create a function, create book that takes in parameters for title, author, genre, and year published, and returns an object with these properties. So this one's pretty basic. So we've got our create book method here, and notice it's already taking in title, author, genre, and year published. So the main thing that we're going to be doing is just making the object and returning that object. So we can just do const new book equals object. Then we'll put our properties in there, and then we simply just return new book. So basically we want like these parameters here, title, author, genre, year published. Those are the same name that we want for the properties that'll be in the object. So normally, like let's say the first parameter for title, we were going to call special title or something like that. So we would do, if that's what we wanted the property to be, we'd do special title and then title. And that, we'd be adding the special title property to the object, but it would have the value of whatever you pass in whenever you create book. So if you call create book and you pass in Infinite Jest or something, then, which is a book title, then that's what title would be, and it would go here. Now, we don't want it to be special title. We want it to be title. And so that, typically what you would think is that would look like this. So title, and then we do author, genre, year published. In JavaScript, there's actually a shorthand syntax. If you have a variable holding a property that you want to be the property name and the value, you can actually just pass it like that without the repeating it. And then ChatGPT knows I want author, genre, year published after that. So that's kind of a shorthand way to add those four properties to the object and then return it. Now these will be whatever we pass in terms of the type. So title would be a string, author would be a string, genre would be a string. Year published is actually probably going to be normally a date type. So there's actually, we haven't used it yet, but there is actually a specific special type in JavaScript for dates called date type, and you make it a little bit differently. We'll go ahead and do that just to expose you to all that. But this is all we needed for create book. So now create book works. Now we need to check that it works though, probably. And we also need to to be able to check that it works, we kind of need to hook that up to this prompt thing that we have here. So how are we going to hook up this whole prompt thing, which is kind of jumping ahead to this, like creating a user interface, but let's kind of just, you don't have to follow my instructions exactly. Let's just go ahead and jump to kind of starting that piece so that it's more easy to test for us. So whenever we prompt, what would you like to do? Well, if they say create, then we can call create book. So answer here is like whatever they would type. So let's assume I typed create. So we would do an if statement here, if answer equals create, then we would run our code here. And I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of stuff here. Then we would run this create book function. So we'll call create book. Oh, just imported something for me. So we'll call create book. Now the other big thing you got to figure out is, okay, if they said they wanted to create the book, well, then we need to figure out what the title, author, genre, and year published is that they want. And so we would need to sort of ask that as well, and kind of figure out some sort of way to parse what they typed. So one way that we could do that is basically to prompt again. So we did, question, what would you like to do? And then we got an answer. So if the answer is create, then we could say, okay, let's just do that again. And we could kind of break this out into multiple questions if we wanted to. So we could say, what is the title? And then instead of answer, that would be title. It's gonna get complicated real fast, actually. So honestly, we could kind of ask for it. We could keep embedding it. We could do what is the title, and then inside there, we could do what is the author, and then what's the genre. We kind of like keep nesting these different questions. In other ways, we could just ask for what is the title, author, genre, year, published, and basically just have them type all that out and separate it by a comma, and then we can kind of split everything by a comma once we get the answer back. So we can get we could do info here. Book to add. So we would get info, and then we would need to basically do like const split equals, oh, and ChatGPT knew what to do. So it did info.split, and it knew that I've kind of got these, I'm going to do it comma separated, and like it's comma separated with the space between everything. So to get the actual answers back without any space around it, you can split on, like, you don't have to just split on one character, you could split on more than one character. So we're going to split it on comma space. So just assuming we're going to put spaces in between everything. So then we would create the book. And then so split info would be all of those things split by you guys, which is going to be an array, right? With the first element being the title, the second element being the author, and so forth. You guys learned about destructuring. So here's a really good use case of destructuring, which is where we pull out specific elements in an object or in an array. And so we can go ahead and just destructure this to be const title, author, genre, year, published. So basically we're saying, hey, I want, so this is going to be an array, this info.split. And then take the 0th element and assign that to a variable called title, take the 1th element and assign that to author, and so on. So that we're just kind of extracting the first 4 elements out of the array that we create here. And then we can pass that to create book. So we would do title, author, genre, year published, like that. Then we need to close our brackets here. Okay. There we go. So, a lot going on here. So we've got our first prompt. What would you like to do? And then we can, if they say create, then this format that better. Oh, I still have it messed up. There we go. Okay, so if they say create, then we would ask them, what is the title, author, genre, year published of the book you want to add? And then they would give us that info, and then we would create the book. Now, when we are calling create book, it's just returning a new book to us. It's not, we're not actually adding it to our library or anything like that. So to make sure that this is working, then we'll need to console log our new book potentially. So we would do, const created book equals create book, and then console log that created book. Okay, so now I think we can potentially run our program. Maybe I programmed too much before testing it because there could be bugs that I've created. But let's go ahead and run the program now and see how it's working. So we'll do so I'm in the right spot on my computer already. If I do pwd, I'm in OKCoder's curriculum module 3 day 4, which has, if I list what's in there, my library.js file. So I'll do node library.js and run that. And oh, my program closed. I think I jacked something up. Notice that like my program quit on me. It like didn't wait. Maybe I have to do this close. I don't remember what I changed. Yeah, I think with this close is important after you do a question. Let's find out. Oh, actually, I think I probably closed it here. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so now it's before when I changed this code, the readline.close that I had down here was running and just ending it from listening anymore. So we don't want this close until our program is done, basically. So we can just get rid of that for now and go back and run this. All right, so This is what we'd like to do. If we type just nonsense here, then nothing's going to happen and we're not closing the prompt. And so it's just staying open. So I type nonsense. And so this if here doesn't run. And then we never close our program. And so it's just like continually waiting. When I say close program, I mean that like read line dot close piece. So if we don't if we don't know what to do for them, you know, if they type something that doesn't work, then we can essentially just have an else and do like console log, yeah, invalid input basically, and then go ahead and close. We can potentially prompt again at that point, which is potentially what we want because we want people to keep being able to do different commands of the library. But for now, let's just close it, make sure this is working. So what would you like to do? If we type nonsense, then invalid input program closes. So if we actually type something valid though, which was create, we can see, okay, that if statement ran and it asks, what is the title, author, genre, year published of the book you want to add? I've been adding, notice how like the typing kind of happens right in with the prompt. That's why I added that new line up here, was to give it some space, just to kind of make the program feel a little bit better. So to add a new line to a program, there's just a special character \n, which means a new line. So that's what I'm adding here. All right, so if we want to create, then now we've got, you know, it kind of laid out a little bit better where it's on a new line, and we need to give the title. So infinite jest David Foster Wallace fiction. I think it was like 1990 or something like that. Wait, where did just okay. All right, so we're splitting not on space, but on comma space. So it's only going to split here, here, and there, right? Okay, and then I'm kind of making up the format of date published. So we could really change that to year published, because this isn't the day, this is the year. I mean, so really you might want someone to put, which I don't know when this was published exactly, but you know, you'd want maybe something closer to this format. But again, this is just going to be a string. This isn't like an actual date type, which we'd have to update our code to handle that. But let's see if this is working. So I'm going to press enter. And it looks like it worked. So I console logged that object, and we've got everything set up the way we expected. So we've got that object with those properties set up correctly. So that's good. So we can call that piece done. And I'll hit Control C to end that program. And now we can maybe move on to the next step, which was, you know, we created a book. Now we need add book that takes a book object and adds it to the library array. So for our user, you know, we have these functions separated out, create book and add book, but like if they are doing create, they probably want to add it to their library at that point. So there's no need to make like a separate create and add kind of step in our program. So whenever they do create book, we'll add it to the library for them. So let's go ahead and implement this function here though. So we've got our library and we've got our book. So we simply need to just do, like, library is already established for us. So we just need to do library.push book exactly like this. Yeah. So that's a pretty simple one. And the book is being passed into us, and yeah, we're all good. So we can just simply, instead of console logging created book, we can do add book and pass created book to it. Okay. Okay, good. So we can just, you know, after we add a book, you know, we can do library.push book, and then we can console log like some sort of helpful message like, yeah, we'll do. Yeah, okay. Book title has been added to the library. That's helpful. And then I also want to say like how many items are in your library now. And so let's see how fancy ChatGPT. Yes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I don't know how I knew that, but there are now library length books in the library. That's what I wanted. So let's save this and check and see if our program's working correctly. So we'll go do this. What would you like to do? Create. All right, type all this again. And I'll go ahead and copy this so I can paste it next time. Okay. All right, so we've got our console log that happens. Wait. Oh, okay, sorry. So here's what I typed, and then Infinite Jest has been added to the library. There are now 1 books in the library. Okay, so this is a good chance to learn about this. So we want this to say 1 book in the library. So usually what I like to do is do like const plural. Okay, and then I don't know, I think you guys came across the ternary operator in your homework on Free Code Camp, but it's sort of like a shortened if statement, like a 1-line if statement that returns something. So this is what I want to do here. So if the length of the library is greater than 1, then we want S at the end of book. So instead of, so we have books here, but we want that to be book if the library is just 1. So if it's 1, or if it's greater than 1, then we get that S. Otherwise, it's just an empty string. So this is a good implementation of plural. And basically then instead of having this S here, we're going to reference that plural variable. So it'll be either an S or nothing. And so it'll be either be book or S or books. Okay, good. All right, so we're good there. Let's go on to removing. So it's going to take a title and remove the book from the array. So remove book title. We'll do library dot I think it's splice. Yeah. So we'll do splice with a position variable, and then we want to delete 1 element, and then so we just need to find the position, and ChatGPT is doing it for us. So there's, or not ChatGPT, but Copilot. So we want to find the index. So that is a method on arrays, find index, that takes a function and returns the first position that is true for that. So we want to find the index where the book title is equal to the title that we're passing in. So so this is correct. So that'll work for us. Now, if we type something wrong and that book isn't in the library, then I think position will be, yeah, so it'll be -1 if it can't find anything. So basically, if we could do, if position equals -1, we can say, book not found. Otherwise, then we would splice it. Okay, and then we would say, okay, title has been removed from the library, very good. And then that's funny. We actually, so this whole like plural and there are now library length books in the library, that's pretty useful. We want to use that code again down here. So we shouldn't duplicate that code. We should move that code to a function and then reuse that function. So I'm going to do a function. What do I want to call this? Library stats. And then we would do this there. Great. So then we just need to call library stats here. And then also call that when we remove the book. So has been removed from the library, and then now we get this helpful log in more than one place. Okay, so we can't test remove book unless there's a book in the library. And when we start our program, there's nothing in the library. So we need to be able to add a book and then remove that book to test this function. So right now, when we do our program, we're not prompting again, ever. But basically, every time something happens, we want, like after we've finished doing something, we're going to want to prompt again. So, you know, if they create a book or add a book, then once we've finished adding that book, then we just want to start the program again. And starting the program again is just basically running this prompt function, which will ask them, what would you like to do? And then has all our other logic inside of it. So this is a really good time to use a concept called recursion, which is to essentially have a function call itself. So this is one of the most crazy things to learn about the first time, but prompt, you know, inside the body of the function definition, we can actually call the prompt function and have it start over, basically. So after we've added a book, we're just going to call prompt again. And that's totally fine. And we can even call prompt again after the invalid input so that they can try again, basically. So we're now, you know, basically starting our prompt over at different points within the prompt function. So we can test that out. What would you like to do? We can type gibberish and it would say invalid input, and then it asks what would you like to do again. We can type gibberish again and it'll say that's invalid. And then what would you like to do? And finally we can type something correct, like create. And now it's like, okay, well, good. So what's the title, author, genre, your publisher, the book that you want to add? I'll paste in what I had before. And says, okay, Infinite Jest has been added to the library. There are now, oh, this whole sentence, there are now one book in the library. So we need to change this whole sentence to there is now one book in the library. Otherwise, make it, yeah. So we probably just do like a whole if for the whole sentence rather than just the plural piece here to make this sentence make sense. But then now it's asking us what we'd like to do. But keep in mind, we don't have remove yet. So we need to kill that program, start this over, and then add an else if. So else if answer equals remove, then we would do, what did I do wrong here? Oh. Okay, so else if remove, then we need to ask another question, which is, I'm just going to copy this whole thing. So if it's removed, then we would say, what is the title of the book you want to remove, question mark. This would be title, and then we would just simply call remove book with that title. And then we may want to prompt again to start the program over. So I'll leave that there, save this, and then we will test this, paste that book. All right, now we want to remove. So what is the title of the book you want to remove? Infinite jest. Or let's type something that doesn't exist. Book not found. Great. What would you like to do? Remove. What is the title of the book? Infinite jest. There are now 0 book in the library. So that sentence isn't great either. And actually for 0, you want it to be plural. There are now 0 books in your library. And so we can update that plural function to handle that case as well. All right, but our kind of main goal is going okay. So removing is working now. So let's do find. So we just got 2 more. So let's go to find book. That goes by title. So this one's pretty simple. We will do library.find book title equals title, and then we just need to return this. Now, if it doesn't find something, it would just return undefined. So that's not super helpful. And so we'd probably want to fancy this up a little bit to be, if we find the book, it's okay, here's the book. Otherwise, that book is not in your library. And then potentially we could be like, do you want to add it or something? And like automatically have the title and be like, okay, what was the year published and author, and like make it the user interface a little bit better, but we don't need to worry about that. So what we want to do is const book equals library.find. And then we would say, if the book exists, then we would console log the book, else console log book not found. Great. Okay. So now we need to add this to our prompt stuff. So I'll copy that. So else if answer equals find, we would say, what is the title of the book you want to find? And then instead of remove book, you do find book. Good. All right, let's go ahead and knock out list books and then we'll test everything. So for list books, we could probably do library stats to tell them how many books are in there. And then, yeah, perfect. So we could either just console log the whole library, and that'll, kind of show the array structure, but then it may not show all the object properties. And so, we could do just console log library, or we can do library.for each and then console log each book. I'll probably do it this way. So we would do library stats, and then we could say something like console log. Yeah, the books in the library are very good. And then, yeah, good. So let's test this out. So what would you like to do? Create, paste this book. Let's create another book. I'm reading termination shock right now. Neil Stevenson. It is fiction, science fiction. And it was 2022 or 21, I think. Okay. All right, so now there are 2 books in our library. Let's I'm trying to remember the commands. This is another thing is we probably want to list the commands to the user when we ask them what to do so they don't have to memorize it. But oh no, and I didn't hook that one up either. Phooey. Okay, well. So let's do that. So what would you like to do? You can create, remove, find, or list. And then we need to add list. So else if answer equals list, then we don't really need to do anything else. We can just call list books. Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's try this again. So I would like to create. There's infinite jest. I would like to create again. Stevenson. Science fiction. Okay. All right, so now let's list. All right, cool. Got 2 books in our library, Infinite Jest, Termination Shock. Let's find, oh no, I'm not asking them what they want to do after that. Okay, so after all of these, we want to prompt again. So after listing books, we want to prompt. After invalid input, we want to prompt. After find, we want to prompt. After remove, we want to prompt. Yeah, so we're good. All right. One more time. Create. Adjust. Create. And this is when maybe adding the save ability from the get-go would have been nice as well. All right, so list back to where we were before, find. So let's find infinite jest. And there we go, found infinite jest. And then let's just make sure that removing still works. And we'll say infinite jest. And let's list again. And yeah, we're good. Everything's working. Cool. All right, so that was the main stuff for you all to do. But now there's the bonus round. So we want to save our library. And yeah, I said you could use ChatGPT to kind of figure out how to do this. Essentially, though, and so honestly, we could probably feed it this whole program. Why does it keep importing create? Could probably feed it this whole program and say, hey, will you add the ability for books to be saved, like to save books to the file system to this program. So honestly, we could try that, or we could say like, how do you save contents of an array of objects to the file system or something like that in ChatGPT. But let's try let's try, here is a simple program. Please add the ability to save the state of the library to the file system so that on subsequent runs of the program, our books are saved. Okay. Essentially that what we wanted to do is when we add a book, remove a book, we want it to save it at that point whenever those functions are running. And the way that we can save it is we can do what's called JSON stringify the library, like the array of objects. And JSON is something you can read about, but it's a text format that is like encoded in a particular way so that you can like put useful data in there. And so it stands for JavaScript object notation. So like when things are sent over the internet or when things are saved in a file, like it has to be stored as text. And so we need some sort of way to represent an array of objects in text. And so JSON is that format. It's just objects with but every property has a quote around it, basically. And so there's a method available to us in JavaScript called JSON.stringify, and you just pass whatever you want to stringify to it, and it will do it for you. So then we can take that stringified thing, put it in the file. So file system, write to a file. And so we would just add a new file next to our program called like library cache or something like that. And then whenever we start the program, we would need to read from that from that file. And then anytime we add or remove, we need to update that file. So I'm hoping that's what ChatGPT will do. Or it'll potentially explain what I just explained a little bit better. So I did Shift Enter to get to new lines, and then I'm going to paste our whole program in there. So I just pasted all our code into it. And then, yeah, let's see what it will do. Okay, so notice, we've got our library here, and then it's making a location on our computer for where we're going to store the cache of the JSON. Now, it could be a text file, but there's actually is a JSON extension, so it's doing that. So library.json is just a file that has JSON inside of it. So this is the file path we're going to use. At the beginning of our program, if that file exists, so there's a so we have noticed that we import the file system module. So we did that, and then we are using that. So file system, there's a method on that called exists, and we're using the synchronous version of that method, which we're going to learn about asynchronous and synchronous code pretty soon. But we're using the synchronous version of that. So we're saying, hey, if that file exists, then I want you to load the text contents of it. So we're doing read file synchronously, the library file path. So it's loading in that file and it's coming in as a string. And then we're using, so I mentioned there's the JSON.stringify method. There's also the parse method. So we're doing JSON.parse, which will do the opposite of stringify. So it'll take the string and turn it into like an actual JavaScript thing, like either an object or an array of objects or whatever. So in this case, it'll be an array of objects, and then we just update our library with that. So we set it to that. So if that text file had 2 books in it, then it would turn our library into those 2 books. Okay. And then we also have this save library method, which will write the current file, notice using JSON stringify the library, to that library file path. So we've got this method that will put the library in its current state in that file in JSON. And then we've got this one up here that will read it at the beginning of our program. And then basically you can just see, we just call save library whenever we update the library. So after we add a book, we call save library. So we still do what we did before, library.push, but then we just say, hey, now take the current state of the library and add that to the file. And then when we remove a book, we do the same thing. And I think that should be the only thing we need to do. Good. So all we need to do is copy this code here and add it to our program. And then we just need to call save library when we add and when we remove. And we only need to, I wonder if it did that. Yeah, we only need to do it inside so if the book's not found, then we don't need to say update the library or save the library. We only need to do it if we actually remove a book from the library. Okay. Okay, good. So we don't have a library.json file, notice. But that's okay. It's going to add it for us once we start using this. So we can just start running our program. Oh, I forgot to import the file system up here. So const fs require fs. Okay. So in Node, we have to when we want to use a module that's provided by Node, we have to explicitly say that we want to use it. And that's what this require statement is doing. It's importing that module. All right, so we'll try again. All right, so that's working. What would you like to do? So let's create our infinite jest. Oh shit, I just pasted way too much. Sorry, I jacked stuff up by hitting Control C there, and I pasted I pasted all the code that I didn't have the infinite jest in my clipboard anymore. I had all the code that I posted to ChatGPT. So let's create. I'll have to type this out again, but this is the last time I have to do it. Infinite jest. David Foster Wallace fiction 1990. Okay. So we added the book and what's just in the program now. Okay. And notice, we didn't have that file to start, but it added it. So whenever we wrote the library after adding that book and saved it, it added that file for us. That's just the default functionality of that write file sync. If it doesn't exist, it'll just create it for you. So we can look at what's in that file. So like if we just go to VS Code, we can see that file is there now and click on it. And notice it looks almost exactly like an array of objects. But this is a text file or a .json file. And then notice that all the properties have quotes around them. So normally you just put title without quotes, and then you put, if it's a string, you put it in quotes for the value. All the properties have quotes around them. That's the only difference really between like a normal array of objects and then a JSON array of objects. So that's all that is. But now it exists, and if we start our program and we actually have an error. Oh, in mine, I have constant library. We need to change that to let library. And it's, since the file exists now, it's trying to mutate that, and we got an error. So we just need to change it. All right. So, okay, now the program is working, and let's list. And good, there we are. We've got our infinite jest in there without having to type it again. So we can create a new book again. And All right, list again, got our 2 books, quit the program, start it over, list again, got our 2 books still, and then we can remove. And we can remove termination shock. And list again, and now we just have 2 books, quit the program, start again, list again, and we just have that 1 book. So yeah, that was the bonus round, a little bit trickier, but also like, you can get ChatGPT to give you the answer as long as you know how to use it. So okay, I think actually that's probably enough for today. I said I was going to do a few different algorithms, but I think this was enough for today's class. So hope you all are doing well. I'm doing pretty good, and I'll see you all on Saturday.